to send out links is not enough. You have to know about the SEO, the search engine optimization, and the other social engagement things in order to make this thing successful. So Sister Hannah, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn to you.
Wow, thank you so much. You were amazing. So just what I got from that one thing I always say is knowledge is infinite. We will know more tomorrow than we know today. We will always learn something new the next day. And knowledge isn't necessarily power, it's potential. And what we do with knowledge is where the real power lies, right? So thank you so much. I love the title of this entire program, equipping and empowering leaders to lead through the pandemic within the church. And that's exactly what you did, Reverend Young. So you provided the equipment, and I hope today to empower folks how to use that equipment. The Statue of Liberty sat for many years, right, with equipment, and no one put it together until somebody was empowered to put it together piece by piece. And that's why we come together today and present together. So before I do go any further, thank you for being my co-host and co-facilitator today.
Certainly.
We have engaged a few times on a few different platforms and a few different meetings. Love your energy. And I hope to continue to work together now and in the future. So real quick, I just have to thank the AME Alliance of the Washington, D.C. vicinity, President Reverend Valdez Snipes, of course, my pastor, Reverend Dr. Mark E. Whitlock Jr., as well as our presiding elder, Reverend Johnny R. Calhoun, as well as the Bishop of the Second Episcopal District. Before I continue on with who I am, we are live on Facebook, everyone. We are live. So what I want you to do, since you've been watching for about an hour and some change, is if you can, you have power within each of your devices or however you're watching. You're watching on a computer, you're watching on your phone. Stop and share this video. If you believe this video is impactful or it's helpful as you may be supporting and watching, I ask you to do that. And that's part of the empowerment piece. It's all about the people. Organizations don't run people, people run organizations. So the empowerment piece is about the people. So if you can, we ask you to stop and share this video so anyone who may need it or can use this information can see it. That's the power of social media and a little bit of the difference between our standard streaming on our website and using platforms such as social media. So now I'll introduce myself. Now that you've stopped and done that, I also encourage you to comment in the chat, encourage the speakers today, ask your questions, and engage with us. It's all about engagement. So my name is Hannah Naomi Jones. I would say personally, with a passion, I am a high energy visionary person who develops people, and I dream really big. Professionally and formally, I am the Communications and Marketing Director of Read Simple AME Church, where I focus on social impact and influence and building the beloved community, as our pastor says, Reverend Mark Whitlock, and making a social, spiritual, and physical impact on our communities, empowered through the people. Professionally, I also am the creator of Lead With Me, a movement that kind of birthed the womanpreneur in me, creating Lead With Me, creative strategies and consulting, and then Lead With Me, leadership and racial equity coalition. And that's where I focus on empowering the community to hold folks accountable about racial equity as well. Everything I do is under 4 areas in life. And a lot of this is just actualizing who you are and your potential and what you can do. And 1 is social impact and community organizing. 2 is strategy and program design. Storytelling is 3, amplifying impact and innovation and mindset. And why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because I was brought here today to talk about making the most of your virtual experience through creativity, innovation, streaming, and technology alongside with Reverend Dr. Young. And all that is rooted in mindset. It's rooted in mindset. He provided the equipment. I want to empower you to lead through the pandemic through mindset. I've only been at Read Simple about 1 year. I'm the first in my position. There wasn't a communications marketing department. There wasn't a person. There was our lay were doing it. We have a PR, we have a commission system, right? And so my first year was really about understanding the culture serving our church and the needs and understanding what the gaps are, right? And then just as I begin to develop what was needed to kind of answer those gaps, the pandemic hit. I remember I had just had a meeting with the Federal Communications Commission. I'm here by way of California, so I'm really excited to be right here in the DMV and be able to meet with different administrations. And I learned a very important piece. One of the things I learned from the FCC was social media is not regulated by the FCC. If you do not know, the FCC regulates pretty much radio, television, and all that stuff, which means that social media is low-key protected to do things like create television shows, create what you see the Facebook Watch. And Facebook is governed by its own community agreements and rules, and the FCC at this point can't touch it. I will come back to why that's important and why we have so much influence to do something new right on social media. And I remember when the pandemic hit, after learning the information, California, it was really worse in California at first. And so I was getting all these notifications from school systems and things I used to work at with a term, social distancing. Nobody knew what that was. Don't act like you did back in March, right? And I said, we have to come up with a communication strategy for business continuity. And I began to kind of copy the language for the communication strategy. You could feel the pandemic was coming across the nation from the West to the East. And soon I was getting ready to develop everything, we had to stop and reshape and reform. And we sat for 8 hours and came up with a communication strategy to talk to our congregation and our stakeholders and the community of what we're going to do. I say that because we stopped in the middle of what was most important to us, and we focused on the sustainability and the survival of the church. That is part of the mindset. What made us all stop and be empowered to say, we're going to face this. The things we thought was most important is not important. What happened there, right? What inspired us versus motivate us, right? Motivation is to get someone to do something that you want them to do. Inspire is to bring something out of them, right? And they have buy-in to get a common goal or objective done. And we all were inspired to lead through the pandemic. And now we're coming up with different workshops and different tools to teach about how to equip each other. So mindset. So what are we trying to achieve? Whether we're in a pandemic or not, we try to achieve church engagement, right? And that church engagement leads to souls being saved, membership, folks giving and planting financial seeds in good soil of your church, right? And so how do we do that in a pandemic? We figured out how to do that. We figured out how to do an altar call in person, right? Have the music and provide the opportunity to walk down the aisle and all those different things that happen. How do you do that in a pandemic or through technology? And so I want to talk about the Praxis of Church Engagement. What is praxis? I know it's a word that a lot of people don't use, but praxis is simply theory and practice together, and it's the application pretty much of a theory. The world is separated and traditionally in two ways. You have people who think of theory, and theory is just knowledge, the know-how, the knowledge. And then you have a world who applies skill set and kind of just takes their orders, marches to the rhythm of what they've been told. But for a well-rounded approach to be effective in achieving church engagement that supports the sustainability of the church and the continuity of what you are doing, you want to operate in praxis. And that brings everybody to the table. All minds, all theories, all skill sets to the table. And that's what I want to talk about really quickly. So how do we do that? So theory, our knowledge is the order of service, right? The liturgy, what is it? Liturgy, how we do everything, the knowledge that's originated from our constitution, our discipline. And the practice is, how do we bring that to life? How do you bring the order of service to life? Through skill and application, through gifts and innovation, ingenuity. That is what we want to focus on. Again, the Praxis of Church Engagement. and how to do that. How do we empower church leaders of any size church to operate in the practice of church engagement in the pandemic? One, building community via technology without a face-to-face meeting. Building community via technology without a face-to-face meeting. Remember, I said organizations don't lead people, people lead organizations. So your community, your people, and building that community is crucial. How do we do that when we can't meet? How do we do that when you just can't roll up to the church and say, I decided to come to Bible study? How do we do that when we have barriers and challenges like, I don't even know how to use my phone, I don't have a computer, and even economic challenges such as I don't even have the internet. Believe it or not, folks, there are plenty of people who do not have the internet, can't afford it, pull up to McDonald's, use their Wi-Fi. It happens in education all the time with our parents, right? So just be mindful of those barriers in terms of how do you build it without a face-to-face? How do you achieve it, right? How do you achieve a really meaningful altar call or invitation and praise and worship without being face-to-face? So I'm gonna give you the key to that. One of the keys is not to emulate the experience, not to say, I want to throw hand claps in there, even though we know the ones in the church, not to necessarily try to do that, but actually to emulate the emotion or try to pull out the emotion that is felt and triggered from the experience that such as the altar call. We see it in the movies, right? So a sad scene comes on and you find your eyes watering. There is no face-to-face engagement. This is a movie. When our Madam Vice President spoke, right? We felt some emotion, a sense of we were so proud, right? And some of us were moved to tears. There was no face-to-face engagement. It is all possible. It is all possible, again, through creativity, innovation, and building that community. How do you build community via technology? One is reimagining how you operate. I know we kept saying reimagining for the last 8 months, so I'm gonna talk about what it really means real quick. Reimagining how you operate. And what do I mean by that? In your current situation, right? How do you operate as an organization? I say current situation, like Reverend Young said, you don't have to go out and buy money and buy all these different things. First, you need to see what you have, right? What do you have in your current situation? Also, current situation meaning you too are suffering, right? Because of the pandemic, or you too are scared. I remember feeling like I have to do it home and come to work. I think we all felt that way. Work kept going. So affirming what's happening with your organization and with the people who run it, right? And then what tools do you have there? What departments do you have there? What reserves or money did you have to tap into if you had to? What do you have there? And strategically throw it all on the table. You kind of see it in action movies when the world's coming to an end or something attacks, all the rules kind of go out the window and everybody's trying to survive, and you come together, and people that you would never imagine come together in areas that you would never imagine come together. It's kind of like that. That's a little extreme. I told you I dream big, a little animated, right? But that's the concept. And one of the things we did at Reed Temple, for example, is there are areas that operated to make things happen at Reed Temple for 38 years that have come together very differently, one heart, one mind, one voice. And one of the things we did, we created these 4 areas: marketing and communications and shaping a message, coming together with organizational agility and ministry development, right? Coming together with technology, platform services for broadcasting, streaming, and hosting. I'm working closely every day with program production and creative messaging. We forged a new way to operate, right, to equip us to build community and achieve the Praxis of Church Engagement. It was uncomfortable at first for some people. For me, being kind of new, I was like, no, this is cool, right? I just met y'all, right? And so it worked out. But for some people, the technical arts director never necessarily worked so closely with the band, right? Or the band didn't work so closely with the clergy and worship and liturgy in terms of the order. And it's just play with the choir sings, right? It's different. So we all had to come together, right, to forge a new way to operate. So reimagining how you operate. The second part is understanding your community and your audience. Reverend Young talked about this. Who is your community? Who are the people that you're trying to have this community engagement with in a virtual experience? And understanding them is not just saying, okay, we know their generation, they're traditionalists, they're baby boomers, they're XYZ. right? We fine, we know their demographics, got it, right? But what about what's happening with that community? Who is that community? Reed Temple has a large community, but the community also exists of ministry leaders, officers, stakeholders, partners, of course, members. Who are they? And in their current situation, what is happening? How are they affected by the pandemic? We again talked about those barriers. So reimagining how you operate and understanding your audience, even if you have to send a survey. TD Jake sent a survey, said, how y'all doing in the pandemic? I remember it was like a couple months ago. And I thought that was, for me as a person, not even working for a church, it was nice to see that someone asked and wanted me to fill out something to tell them how I feel with all that's happening. And I wished jobs did it. And I wished we did it amongst each other at home. And churches did it, right? And so there's something about how that makes you feel. So affirming your audience and who are they, members and non-members, right? In their current circumstances, assessing through empathy and equity. This is different from, we did that in person, right? If you need something, come to the church, right? How do you understand the empathy that's needed in this situation where there's death all around us? Almost 300,000 people have died, right? And equity, meeting people where they are. The fact that we had a food drive, or I think we had a food drive, yes, with the school district, and that people can drive up, meeting them where they are. You can't get out, right? So that's the equity piece of that, understanding your audience. Design, I focus on design thinking. Design thinking is about a process of how to solve a problem effectively. But I also go into human-centered designing, which is about behavior. How do you solve a problem from a space of empathy and equity? So be mindful of your audience and understand your audience and understand their needs and how to meet them where they are, while you don't overextend yourself, right? Because you have to survive. So also affirming what you're going through as an organization and your leaders. So again, forging a new way to operate, and based on the circumstances of your church, understanding your audience. And one of the last things I'm going to touch on is focus on it. Here's how to focus on engagement. Once you do those two things, you're going to focus on engagement, growth, and impact. I'm going to give you 3 formulas. And this is where the creativity and innovation and the mindset comes in. So you've done that work. We're proud of you from here, right? Now let's move forward to actually engagement, growth, and impact. The equation for engagement is creativity and advertisement. Creativity and advertisement. Creativity plus advertisement equals engagement. What do I mean? On this, in this new era, we're scrolling. How do you stop the scroll? Right? How do you get someone to stop scrolling? And we're not trying to bamboozle people, manipulate people, but we are shaping their perception. That's what communication is. We are shaping their perception. That's right? In a positive way, right? So how do you have an opening that brings people in? How do you do things differently? Maybe we do things a little differently. Same thing with advertisement, right? How is it advertised so people want to come through? And what happens is when they do come through or in the chat, people are engaging. Engagement means I'm going to drop a comment. I'm going to share. I'm going to stop and look. I'm going to like. Those are all things people do on social media to engage. How do you take engagement to growth and grow your church? Absolutely. The second formula is attention plus action. Attention plus action. Those who are liking comments, sharing, engaging with your creative advertisement for your program, your service, or whatever you're doing, you give them attention. Thank you for coming. Hey, I see you, Reverend Young. Oh my gosh, you're watching. I see you. I see right? you. You see me? I see you. I see you. Right? What's Avatar? I see you, Jake. Right? There you go. Movies. Right? I see you. Thank you for coming, liking their comments. You want to give them attention. And they also give you attention, because attention, this is a way where we're not face to face, but we're kind of touching we're humanizing each other in a way, right? It's just not, okay, we're live and you comment, but we don't even see your comments. We see them, but we don't have the capacity. Some Sundays, we don't have the capacity to manage Facebook and the website. And sometimes I'll get up and I say, I guess I'll go in there and say, hey, because those folks deserve someone to give them attention, to say, we see you. Thank you for coming to our worship service, for coming to our Bible study. Action, taking a call to action. What do you want them to do then out there, down if they're there? Now that they're giving you attention, they clearly like what you're doing. Do you say, hey, come to our next Bible study? Hey, would you like to become a member? Hey, can we pray for you? Hey, we have this event coming up. You know, what is the call to action? Register, sign up for our newsletter. You want to know more? Sign up for text messages. Attention plus action equals growth. How do you take that growth and sustain it by making an impact? People are more likely to succeed when they become leaders, to change things that affected them, that they feel a part of, a sense of belonging. So you want to make sure that you make an impact with that growth for the sustainability of the church. These are all the ways you're going to be creative and think innovatively how to do things. Impact, I have to credit this formula to Bishop Vashti McKinley in her Selah conference, which I've never attended, but First Lady Reverend Mia always attends. She always brings me back some goods, some message, something, and she brings back this. Content plus intention equals impact. Content, a flyer is content, a video is content. Those are all, a picture of worship is content. It's all content, but what is the intention behind your content? We are putting out content without intention. If people are moving by it or they're not impacted by it, it's just another flyer. How do you have innovative, intentional content? And the intention is rooted in your goal of church engagement. It's rooted in your goal of membership, of salvation, spreading God's word. And so you should be fueled and empowered to put all you can in creating the content with the intention to make an impact. These are the 3 steps that I have that focus on building community via technology without a face-to-face meeting. That is all about the praxis of church engagement. The last thing, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to just jump in there because I know you wanted, I had this question for you. Let me make a comment because something came to mind as you were talking. We have to be able to look at something that we used to do in the physical and figure out how to best do it in the virtual or electronically. For example, new members classes. Pookie and them ain't coming to nobody's church. They're not going to take a whole Saturday and do an hour-long Zoom class and get certified. So can you flip it? Can you create, what I want to do is create recorded modules. They watch one module, you know, maybe it's 10 minutes long, and there is a list of questions. They complete that, they say that they've read the new members manual, and that's it.
Right.
They've completed their new members, process. But the old way is we used to drag it out and you had to physically come in, and we understand, but all things must change. And so my question to you, Sister Hannah, is you've been talking about social influence, but it's not a given just because a church is online. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the things that churches need to do, like that engagement that you were talking about when they were live, having people interacting with the people while they're online, giving them addresses, sending them links where to donate? Can you talk about how just because you're online doesn't mean everybody's seeing you?
So that's a wonderful question. And that's a whole another workshop, but I'm gonna make the answer as brief as possible. I think I have a podcast episode going over this formula. I always have formulas because, you can look back and try to apply them to how your church is situated or how your organization or you as a person is situated. And I did a workshop about the WHO formula. It's something I made up, and it's all about intention. So I've been meeting with church. Again, my role has turned into writing pretty much television shows because, again, what's happening is we're live, we're on Facebook, and we have an opportunity to make a new way to see television. Remember, we complained about television is too worldly and have all these things going on. Guess what? You have a lot of power, Black church, to change what we see now because we're on social media, not governed by the FCC. Now, that won't last forever. You best believe the FCC is going to try to jump in this after all this has happened. So you have an opportunity to jump on this platform, do some good, some social good, some change, spread God's word, and set the precedent for what you want or you believe fundamentally and ethically people should have before them in terms of entertainment or support or whatever the case may be. So that's just that part. So the whole formula is just simply, who, what, when, where, why, how, whatever, and other. So I have to meet with church. I'm not an event planner necessarily, but I put on events because, again, I help bring to life ideas. And so in the pandemic, people bring in the people that are going to push live or do the Zoom last. You can't do that. You have an idea and you think you're going to do the same thing you did before, where you're going to set a date, set a time, and y'all going to come to the church. That's the part that's missing, the how. The how is different now. And the how requires you to include people that know how to get it done. Okay? And to help you think through solving your problem. We have to now change how ministry leaders are creating programs and how we're doing services from a place of why. Why are we doing it? What problem are you trying to solve in having a food outreach? What problem are you trying to solve by collecting clothes? We're doing a Christmas, our women's ministry does a Christmas outreach every year and collect goods. And do we stop? Ministries have said, we can't do it. The pandemic has happened. We can't have our leadership conference. We can't do this. Let me tell you how people are going to pull up on December 12th, shameless plug, and drop off clothes. The list is on readtumble.org/events, and drop off clothes packaged, for the women's shelter. Shout out to Reverend Moody and all the women at Reed Temple, AME, and they're going to make it happen in the pandemic. The how is important, right? So why are you doing it? What are you doing? Who is it for? You have to think through that from the lens of being in the pandemic. So I want people to stop and apply that who from and the how. The how could be, I just met with the young adults ministry. They want to talk about wealth building. You could pre-record. What does that take? We need somebody to record it. We need a video camera. Then we need somebody to edit it. We can go live. Oh, you want to go live? You can go live as yourself, or do we go live as an organization? Your behavior is different as an organization than yourself. You use your influence. I see your page all the time. Yeah, and you speak from a place of, I'm Reverend Dr. Anthony Young. And then you use your platform as your church and say, I'm coming from a place of an organization. Those are the things we have to think through. So bring your thinkers and program designers to the table when you make these events. This is not a stop and, let's not do events in the pandemic. It's possible. We just have to do it from the frame of the pandemic and be open to that. And again, you can go live, but how you do it is so important. How you engage, and then think through those call to actions. Without the call to action, what's next? Bring the stuff to the church for the outreach. Salvation. You told people to raise their hand if they want to be saved, but how do you know who they are?
That's right.
And then the research that you mentioned, we have something called chat bots with Facebook.
Right.
Or you can, someone says, I want to be saved, and they'll get a message on Facebook. Right? We got to try out those things. And guess what? You're going to get people to say, I hate it. You're going to get people to say, I love it. But if you don't try, don't be risk adverse. Make calculated risk, but don't be risk adverse. You have to try. If you don't try, you never know. That's my answer to that.
All right. Dr. Valdez, Hannah and I are standing by if there are any questions. Are there any questions?